Hello and shalom. We are moving now to the third subject, the third issue. Out of the four I mentioned last time, yes, we have we had the idea of the infinite uh, inherited in the human being. We spoke about the desire for the infinite, and we are moving now to the face, encountering the face. This is in the book. Totality and Infinity. Levinas deals with the face in section number 3. A part which is called exteriority and the face, page 186, and it starts really in 187, sensibility and the face. Levinas, in order to lead to the face, Levinas starts with the issue of sensibility, belonging to, first of all, to senses, connected to pleasure, and then he moves to the issue of light, which I will elaborate later, which is something very important because the light enables the encounter later with the face, and then encountering the face and what stands under the face or behind the face. This is more or less the line of thought of Levinas from page 187 and onwards. In the next screen, I will deal a little bit with sensibility, and then I will elaborate more the issue of light, and I will give also some quotations in the next screens. So I'm moving to speak a little bit about the sensibility now in the next screen. Okay, Levinas, he speaks about sensation, and it looks quite polemic, and the aim is probably is a wish to give sensation its right place. It means that sensation, grasping the world through the senses, this human ability was deprived from its right for several reasons, and if we give it its right, then it will lead to the importance of sensation as a stage leading through light to the face. This looks to me the logic of the move he's making here. So how in which sense the sensation was deprived from his right? First of all, in phenomenology, it was not taken in account enough while looking on one of the characteristics of our consciousness, that it aims into a purpose, that it has intention, that we approach the world with intention. We spoke about Husserl, that according to Levinas at least, Husserl had this tendency. He was still caught in the past. It means that he considered, according to Levinas, too much the world of a concept. It means approaching reality in terms of grasping in the idea, in thought. And for Levinas, concepts, they have a nature not of bridging the gap, but of creating or sustaining the gap between ourselves and the I and the world. Yes, the intention, of course, is to come to the similar, to the adequation by concept. But according to Levinas, it doesn't. It's just the aim to become similar and to conquer reality by that. He calls it in one place egologia, egologia, like theosophy, like you have, not theosophy, like everything that ends with logia, like the doctrine of the ego. Yes, taking the world to oneself, as we were speaking last time, where actually the wish for similarity, for adequation, is the containing the world in the ego, for the ego. We were speaking about it. Yes, so indeed, to put the things together now in the sequence somehow, this is not the approach of Levinas, and he doesn't think that thinking and concepts are really filling the gap. So he is going to another intention, the intention of sensation, which for him it is probably more initial, more primary than the world of the concepts. Yes, because we are trying to come in this method to the initial aspects, yes, that are with them the primary elements or attitudes by which we are approaching the world. Yes, so he says that the idea of intentionality has compromised the idea of sensation by removing the character of being a concrete datum from this allegedly purely qualitative and subjective state, foreign to all objectification. To be clear, actually there are 2 points here in what I already read. One is that we didn't go to the primary element, as I mentioned, and the second one is that the sensation element was neglected because it was grasped as a mediator, as something initial, as something incomplete, as something that has it is qualitative, and it is yet it is a subjective, qualitative and subjective state, foreign to all objectification. So it's not it's not the issue, the main issue in approaching the world. Let's continue. Already the classical analysis has shown, from a psychological point of view, its constructed character. The sensation graspable by introspection is already a perception. It means really to do something with the sensation, we have to take it further. As by itself, it's not really important. It needs a concept or introspection in order to be valuable. Yes, it was said that we always find ourselves among things. Color is always extended and objective, the color of a dress alone, a wall. Sound is a noise of a passing car or a voice of someone speaking. In fact, nothing psychological would correspond, psychological would correspond to the simplicity of the physiological definition of sensation. It means, to my understanding, that sensation does not deserve even the concrete state, because it has something also physiological. Yes, so it really hang in the air, as he says later. If we want to take it apart from an object, from a relation to something objective, it doesn't have really a value. We can neglect it in order to go to reality, yes, to things real. Yet Levinas disagree with this attitude towards sensation. Let's go on. But from here, so this critic of sensation, what does it mean, the critic of sensation? It's a reduction, actually, of sensation from both sides. From one side, from the side of the eye, taking it to a kind of physiological processes, formula, and going towards the world, the reduction of sensation is as something that is only initial, something which is just the starting point, the base. This critic of sensation failed to recognize the plane on which the sensible life is lived as enjoyment. It means that Levinas tries to put to find or to put the sensible life, or to put it as a kind of category by itself, not as something that leads just something primitive, leads just towards. Because if we take the enjoyment as a factor connected with the sensible life, and sensible life are connected to the senses, then we have a primary cause that goes from ourselves towards the world to satisfy, because we are looking for this satisfaction through the sensible life, and then it has a value of itself. Let's see. This mode of life is not to be interpreted in function of objectification. It is true. It's not lead to objectification, or even if it leads to objectification, it's not its final characteristic. Sensibility is not a fumbling objectivation. Yes, I think it is quite clear. It stands by its own. Enjoyment, by essence satisfied, characterizes all sensations whose representational content dissolves into their effective content. So we have the sensations directed somewhere, yes, outside, to the exterior, which and the sensations are connected to enjoyment. And then he says that their representative characteristic, or I would say it differently, the representative content, it means the relation to something exterior is not the essential, but what is essential is that this representative content dissolves or melt into their affective content, and then they have the sensations or the enjoyment they have their own justification as a kind of category. The very distinction between representational and affective content is tantamount to a recognition that enjoyment is endowed with a dynamism other than that of perception. So in perception, we are grasping something. And the mistake is that it leads to this perception, the sensation. Yet it is not right. We have to give the sensation and the enjoyment their own value. Yes, I think we have to go a bit further in the next screen to see if what I'm explaining here makes sense. So I will go on with another part. Let's see from here. But we can speak of enjoyment or of a sensation even in the domain of vision and audition. When one has seen or heard much, and the object revealed by the experiences is steeped in the enjoyment or suffering of pure sensation, in which one has basked. We will see the continuation, it's the next page. I think we have to refer here to the words but and the even to see what it means. But we can speak of enjoyment or of sensation even in the domain of vision and audition. Vision means here sight, what we see. So from this, I can infer that when he uses Levinas the word sensation, he doesn't refer just only to the senses, like the eyes and the ears, or the noise, or the sense of touch, but also to the self sensation, feeling the ability to feel ourselves before a priori to the concepts, to the objectifying of the self by thinking. So it tends here already towards vision, towards sight, which will lead to the next step. And what he wants to say is, to my understanding, of course, is that even, yes, when we go outside, really to the exterior, yes, to what we see, when one has seen or heard much in the object revealed by the experiences, because it turns to an object, to the exterior, to something that is fixed, is steeped in the enjoyment. So we take something inside as enjoyment from what we encounter by sensation or suffering, of pure sensation. This is his concept, pure sensation, because it stands by itself, in which one has basked and, I read from the book, lived as in qualities without support, because it's a kind of unstable category, because it has its own existence, but it is not fixed. The enjoyment and the sensations related to it, they are not fixed as the things in the exterior, that they have very specific attributes, characteristics. Yes, and then he says, I'm in page 188, the notion of sensation is thus somewhat rehabilitated. Yes, which means rehabilitated, it means that the notion of sensation is thus somewhat rehabilitated. It means that when we look like this on sensation related to enjoyment as something that is initial in us, then it is the notion. This notion of sensation has its own place and it is somewhat rehabilitated. I continue in page 188 a little bit more. In other words, sensation recovers a reality, in brackets, a domain, but a real domain, when we see in it not the subjective counterpart of objective qualities, but an enjoyment anterior to the crystallization of consciousness, I and non-I, into subject and object, which means, to my understanding, that it is this reality is prior to subjective and objective, and it is prior to consciousness. It's, as I said before, it is something basic, and this method of thinking of Levinas and Heidegger and Husserl is looking for the fundamental aspects by which we approach the world. I think at this point I would prefer to go to the sight, vision, what he called here, and to see how what is the category of light according to Levinas, and then it will lead us to seeing the face. So we are approaching the world by intentions. This we know. The essential, according to Levinas, the philosophy of Levinas is the philosophy of the transcendent, and the other as a transcendent, and but we have still more intentions. One of them is it's connected to sensation, by which we are seeking our enjoyment outside, and also in ourselves, the way we feel ourselves, we sense ourselves. And another intention, and here we are going on in the discussion leading to eventually to the face. Another intention that we have, and we spoke about it already, is the intention to bring together ourselves as a subjective and the world of the things, phenomenon, and the tendency, the inclination to bring them together by adequation. And the adequation in the history of philosophy is made essentially by cognition. It means trying to unite, bring together the concept in ourselves, as it comes up in ourselves, with the laws of the exterior, the outer world. Now, in this process, let's call it for now the third inclination, sight, or as he called it here, as Levinas calls it here, vision, is an essential part. And in the history of philosophy, indeed, seeing, sight, vision has a very important role in the process of cognition, which cognition means uniting the world with ourselves, or bringing the world into ourselves. Yes, we approach the world by sight, by seeing, and this observation, when we observe by our seeing the world, we come into cognition. It means that it is not a coincidence that the Western thought recognizes seeing with cognition. For instance, the word enlightenment, I mean not spiritual, mystical enlightenment, which is also seeing, but let's leave it aside. The concept of enlightenment has the light within, and it means light here, or seeing, or vision, being endowed with understanding, with insight about the world. So indeed, seeing is an essential factor in the process of cognition. It comes also into expression in antiquity in the word theory, which has to do with assumption, but also with observation. So here we come back to the issue of light, and then it went to the Latin world, in the world contemplation, which is also an observation. So according to Levinas, and it looks justified, the history of philosophy, of Western philosophy, is the history of seeing and of light, which first and foremost it is located to the world, to the area we called totality. Yet I think that Levinas hints also to something that goes there beyond the world of totality, that there is in the light a kind of a hint to something that transcends the light, and we will see it soon when we read. I will just add to it and mention that Levinas gave, for example, to express the essential task of light and seeing in the Western world, the invention of the telescope, or even the fact that Spinoza was his work was with glasses. Seeing is something essential. By the way, compare with the biblical world, I would say that in the biblical world, hearing is the essential and not seeing. Yes, there is a thing. Also, there are revelations, but the Old Testament is to mainly focuses on listening. Just to compare, I think it is quite interesting. What is the essential sense in our senses? Is it really seeing, as it is in the Western world, as Aristo put it, as Plato put it, as Maimonides, for instance, was so influenced by the Jewish thinker of the 12th century. He gave it also a priority, or just maybe listening, that it is connected to speech. Yeah, I will leave this question in the air, and let's see what Levinas is telling us about the light. So there is a clear process. Yeah, I think it's clear, from sensation inside towards the world, giving sensation its right place, going to a vision, to seeing, and yet limiting, giving it its place, yet criticizing the absolute value that was given to the vision, to seeing. Yes. So let's have a look in the what he writes here. It is in page 189. As Plato noted, besides the eye and the thing, which we may call, usually it is what is called the object, or it could be the phenomena, Vision presupposes the light. The eye does not see the light, but the object in the light. Vision is therefore a relation with a something established within a relation with what is not a something. So the light has something, or the light is something that is not ordinary something. And I think here Levinas hints to something transcendent in the light. We don't see the light, but we see the things, the object in the light. So in this respect, yes, we don't really see the source of the light. The light, in a certain respect, as the eye, the transcendent eye, is not defined as other things like table or things like this, and yet it is something very essential. There is something unique in the light, and therefore it is justified from this point of view to give it a kind of priority, but not from the reason that actually established the history of philosophy. It goes beyond the light as such, as something that is not a something in the ordinary sense, leads beyond cognition. Let's go on. We are in the light inasmuch as we encounter the things in nothingness. This is a quite interesting and enigmatic statement, like in the exterior, in the world of totality, the foundation stone is nothingness. The light makes the thing appear by a driving out the shadows. It empties space. It makes space arise specifically as a void. Inasmuch as the movement of the hand that traverses the nothing of space, touch resembles vision. Touch resembles vision. Nevertheless, vision has over the touch the privilege of maintaining the object in this void and receiving it always from this nothingness, as from an origin. Whereas in touch, nothingness is manifested to the free movement of palpation. Stop here. Yes, so what actually Levinas tries to say here, yes, about the something that is not really something, and about the shadows and kind of a void, yes, and the void. What he tries to say actually? I can say to begin with that this is the way he Levinas experiences the world, yes? With this one cannot argue, or can argue, but this is the way he experiences it. Of course, it's not enough to say it, because it must lead to a meaning, a certain meaning, and this meaning I would like to try to explain. First of all, the light is not something as other things are something. So it has a kind of mysterious, I would say, base that cannot derived directly from the world of phenomena, from the world of totality, which is formed. Yes? And this is from the side of the light. But from the side of the world, he actually claims that what stands as a foundation of reality is not something that can be grasped by bringing together the subject and the object by cognition, because he claims actually that when the light is reversed, is contracted, when we take it off, we have the world of space. We are in complete darkness, which is not just lacking of light, but it's a kind of reality. It means that the light and the thing conjures a reality which doesn't stand on a strong foundation, because there is something prior to the world of light. It means that there is something prior to the world of cognition. And this must be somehow an indication of something transcendent. It means that by speaking about this void that cancels space, the world, we grasp the world in space by seeing or by touching, we actually, by this view of the void or of nothingness, we undermines actually our possibility to grasp the world as such by seeing and cognition, by theory, by observation. The foundation or the illusion given by sight and cognition has to be undermined. We have this illusion because the light is so strong and it brings things to clarity, but what stands underneath is something else. So the foundation of the world is not space that we have to reveal when we open the light. But the foundation is not to be grasped by cognition and not by sensation. I'm trying to look on this idea. If I describe it properly, I'm careful. I must be careful. Maybe we can compare it with the Bible, for instance, how it starts. The Bible, the Old Testament starts with a chaos or with a void. And then the light is added into it in the first day, and we may say that creation, the light, and distinguishing between light and darkness is the foundation of creation in the 6 days or 7 days of creation. But the void or the chaos, the void is mentioned in the beginning of the Genesis, is there all the time. And if we take the void as a reality, which was not cancelled by the light after, but the light is built on this void, then the world is standing on something else than what we think. And this idea, by the way, I find it also in mysticism, in Jewish mysticism. that the world is not as it looks like. It stands on different foundation. The structural world grasps only the surface of reality. And here it seems to me that Levinas approaching this idea from a different direction, from the direction of observing the world of phenomena. But the outcome is not far from what I mentioned now. I'm not claiming that mysticism or the beginning of the Bible is the point of departure of Levinas, but I see a similarity to understanding of the world in different manner than how it was approached, usually in the West, trying to clarify all. Not all reality can be clarified. We cannot really touch what stands behind the surface in an ultimate manner, even not the mystics, by the way. Just metaphysics or the mystics is just one step further, not more than that. Yes, let's see here. Thus, for vision and for touch, a being comes as though from nothingness. And this experience, we have to keep it, to retain, to keep it in us, in order to approach the world properly. And in this precisely resides their traditional philosophical prestige. It means that, how to say, maybe the pride of philosophy belongs only to this part where the light appears, but it has something of illusion, because the sight is concentrated in the world that become visible. We call it space, but it's something else. Okay, I will see in the next screen how I'm going onwards. Paragraph here in page 190 is important for the understanding of this phenomena or category of the light in the world in relation to darkness, void, nothingness, absolute nothingness. And then in the next screen I will bring some sentences to sum up the issue of the light, like a conclusion. So let's see. Considered in itself, illuminated space, emptied by light of the obscurity that filled it, is nothing. So what usually is considered to be something, here it becomes, or it appears as a nothing. Why? Why it appears as nothing? And what is this emptied by the light of the obscurity? Illuminated space, considered it's an illuminated space, emptied by light of the obscurity that filled it. The way I understand it is connected to the last screen. It means that light reveals not only something as that occurs in space, as objects and the subject in front of object, but the light itself reveals its counterpart, its opposite. It means because of illuminated space, we encounter the thanks to the illuminated space, we can imagine that when this illuminated space disappears, we remain with obscurity or with darkness. And it means that in this respect, the light illuminates the darkness or the obscurity. It means that light is the epiphany of darkness or of nothingness, of a void by itself. So actually, light brings us the two opposites together. And these two opposites, they belong to the world of phenomena, to the exterior or to the totality. And it means actually that while taking in account the dual revelation given by light of the two opposites, we encounter the world of illuminated space as something which is nothing, because all the security of the world of cognition dissolves. It appears not as finding the truth, but as two opposites that belong, although they are opposites, they belong to each other. And yes, the light reveals the light of the darkness, I can say, and therefore they belong to the same criteria. It means when we are speaking about the reality, so to speak, of adequation, of similarity, we find it in two ways. One, by similarity, like in cognition, but also the opposite side, yes, brings us not just the similarity, but the opposite. Help us to recognize something, and therefore the opposite has something in common, or it belongs to the same domain as the other side of the one side of the opposite. It means that the opposite, light and darkness, they are both a kind of epiphany. Although negative, they belong to the same domain. It means that they don't go beyond the similarity, the adequation. They have a gap between them. They are opposites, but as opposites, they belong to one another. And that means actually that when we are looking on the illuminated space, where we grasp things through in distance, in that case, the illuminated space becomes relative. And because it is relative, it has something of the nature of meaningless. So not only the darkness, I would call it meaningless, because it's a kind of emptiness, but also the light is reduced to the virtue maybe of being meaningless. And therefore we cannot find meaning in this domain even by the opposites. And therefore it is nothing. In contrary, to be sure, this void is not equivalent to absolute nothingness. So this nothing is just a symbol, like the light is symbol to something else and the darkness is symbol to something else on a different plane, which is the transcendent. Yes, it just symbolizes the absolute nothingness. It means that actually what we would think that will fill us with the warmth or with the light of cognition, looking deeper into it, it let us stay in the realm of cold or indifference. No meaning is in the world of no true meaning exists in the world of the totality, even not by the opposite. Yes, Socrates, for instance, he was thinking that by pointing to the opposites, we gain meaning. If we understand the side of existence, of the relative existence, the opposite will be the absolute, living in the eternal. It means we can induce from the polarities the meaning. But Levinas doesn't accept it. Yes, to traverse it is not equivalent to transcending. When we try to comprehend, to traverse this nothing, yes, we cannot compare it with really crossing the edge to the transcendence. We still remain in the same horizon. So actually the light on one hand like brings about the objects, but from another a point of view, it nullifies the world of the object, calling to go beyond. If the void that light produces in the space from which it drives out darkness is not equivalent to nothingness, I would say to absolute nothingness, even in the absence of any particular object, there is this void itself. Yes? In any case, we don't go here beyond the impersonal there is. No meaning, no personal. So, to end the lesson in maybe the next screen, I will see. Let's go to the maybe some conclusions, sentences that indicates conclusion. I'm going on. Illuminated, like conclusion. Illuminated space is not the absolute interval. Yeah, it's not the absolute interval because all what can be found in the domain we are speaking about is still connected to each other, even the opposites. The connection between vision and touch, between representation and labor, representation is connected to vision, and labor remains essential. Vision moves into grasp. Vision opens up a perspective upon a horizon and describes a traversable distance because it has an horizon, but as such it doesn't see beyond its horizon, although there is something else we know. Invites the hand to movement and to contact, so there is no absolute interval, and ensures them. But it doesn't reach beyond. Socrates made fun of Glaucon, who wished to take the vision of the starlit sky for an experience of height. But he didn't came to the height really. The forms of objects call for the hand and the grasp, indicating that something can be bridged at that domain. By the hand, the object is in the end comprehended, touched, taken, borne, and referred to other objects. There are relations, so there are not proportion, and relation not absolute interval. Absolute interval exists just only between this world that we are describing now, including light and darkness, and the transcendent. Close with a signification by reference to other objects. Empty space is the condition for this relationship. Empty space is the world where we take the light out of it, or the meaningless reality. It is not a breach of the horizon. Vision is not a transcendence. And another verse to conclude in the next screen. It means that I didn't come here to the faith, but I hope we put the foundation for it. To see is hence always to see on the horizon and not beyond. The vision that apprehends on the horizon does not encounter a being out of what is beyond all beings. Vision is a forgetting of the there is, the true being, the transcendent, because of the essential satisfaction. He goes back to where he started. Again, vision is a forgetting of the there is, of the true there is, because of the essential satisfaction, the agreeableness of sensibility, enjoyment, contentment with the finite, without concern for the infinite. In fleeing itself in vision, consciousness returns to itself. We want to go out, fleeing from ourselves, looking for something outside that will be satisfactory. In fleeing itself in vision, because we go outside to the exterior. Yes, this is one move, but the contra move, the other move, is by what we gain there, the consciousness returns to itself. In two aspects, as we noted already. One in the sphere of cognition, where we want to contain the world in us by adequation, and by way of enjoyment, by the senses, by which we also coming back to ourselves, and we have also this aspect of adequation, because we then by pleasure bring the things coming to identity. We identify ourselves with the pleasure that was taken in. So there is a similarity here. We took it into our being, the pleasure, by way of identification with it. In both realms, in both inclination, attitudes, we go back to ourselves. We don't reach something that takes us really to the beyond. Okay, it will be enough for this time. So bye bye.